Crafty fans, it's so time. So for the first episode, I am going to show you how to make a gathered dress for kids. So if you want to learn how, keep on watching. So the first thing I did was trace a pattern. Here I just used a dress. So I just traced half of the dress just like this. And I also traced half of the back of the dress. And I added 1 inch allowance on the back because I will add buttons at the back. And here I already cut out the front and back bodices. And I also cut out 2 front bodices because I'm going to line the dress. And then I'm going to add this lace trims on the front just to add extra detail to the dress. So I'm just going to lay it on top of the fabric just like this. I will put 6 strips of lace trim on the fabric and I'm going to top stitch it just like this. And to sew the pieces together, I'm going to sew the side seams and shoulder seams. Be sure that the right sides are facing. And you are going to repeat the same process to the lining but without the lace trim. Now I'm just going to trim off the excess lace on top and on the bottom. Now it's time to sew the lining and the main fabric together. Be sure that the right sides are facing. I'm going to start pinning along the neckline. At first, I'm going to match the shoulder seams and I'm going to pin it to secure. Just going to sew it from this end to the other end. I am doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm also going to trim off any excess fabric so when I turn it later on, it will not be as bulky. I am also going to make some small cuts, especially on the curved line, just to release the tension of the fabric so when I turn it right side out later on, it will not bunch up. And then I am going to top stitch it just so the lining will not show up on the neckline. And before you sew it, be sure that the seam is resting on the lining, not on the main fabric. And then after that, I am going to do a finishing stitch right on the neckline. And you want to make sure that it is nice and neat as possible because that is on the outside of the main fabric. Now it's time to make the waistband of the dress. Here I have a long strip of fabric that same measurement as the waistline of the bodice. And it is 4 inches wide. As you can see, I folded it in half and placed it on the right side of the fabric and I just pin it on the waistline. I'm going to sew a straight stitch. I already have a video tutorial of this, so I'm just going to have it linked in the description box below. You're just going to fold it like this and you're just going to sew the inseams. I wanted to add extra detail to the sleeves, so I decided to gather just right at the center. I just want to try to do a puff sleeve, so I thought this is like a perfect opportunity for me to try it out. And then I'm just going to lightly gather it, making sure that it will still fit in the armhole of the dress. By the way, I did a basting stitch around the armhole, so it's much easier for me to do it as opposed to working with two fabrics. Now it becomes one. Just going to put the sleeves in the armhole. Remember that the right sides of the fabric are facing each other and you want to match the underarm seams. And of course, you are going to do the same thing to the other sleeve. Now all I have to do later on is finish the sleeve hems and the top is pretty much done. It's time to work on the skirt portion of the dress. First, I did a basting stitch right on the edge of the fabric. And then I will lightly gather it to match the waistline of the bodice. And then I'm going to pin it to secure. Remember that the right sides are facing. And then I'm going to do a straight stitch from here to the other end. You want to take your time because you don't want the gather to move or else the dress is going to look wonky and weird. And don't forget to backstitch, that is very important so your thread will not unravel on you. Now it's time to sew the back seam of the dress. I'm going to start from the yellow line down to the hemline. As you can see here, I press the seam allowances on the back, so when I attach the buttons, it will lay flat. And here I am just adding the buttons. I am just kind of eyeballing it actually. So I ended up using 4 buttons. And I'm just going to mark it using a pencil and I am preparing to make buttonholes. I already have a video tutorial of how to use a buttonhole foot. So if you want to go ahead and watch that, I will have the link in the description box below. Now it's time to seam rip the buttonhole. You want to put 2 pins on the top and the bottom of the buttonhole, and you are just going to slowly poke the fabric just like this. Now that I finished making some buttonholes, it's time to sew on the buttons. I'm just going to use the buttonholes as my guide where to put the buttons. So I'm just going to mark it using a pencil. And then I'm just going to hand stitch it. I'm going to loop it a few times just to make sure it will not unravel. And I'm just going to finish the hemline and the sleeve hems, and the dress is done. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you like this video. I upload every Monday and Friday, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!